Hello, a very warm welcome to Fireside Chats. I am Magela Pillai, and today's topic is entitled Letting Go. I have in the studio with me an experienced meditator who has been a practitioner of Rajyoga Meditation, and Sister Denise. In this series, we invite you to take a good look at your mind and heart and ask yourself all important questions like whether you are happy on a level that counts both internally and externally, whether there is anything in your life that you'd like to improve, and specifically, how can you deepen your understanding and your relationship with the divine. Sister Denise, thank you so much for being here, and a very warm welcome to today's show.
Thank you.
Letting go of what?
A lot of people talk about forgiveness, and I tend not to use the concept, the word, the idea of forgiveness, but in place of that, I prefer letting go, because what happens, somebody does something, and there's a tendency to hold on to it. And even you can say, oh, I forgive you, or please forgive me, or whatever, but you don't let it go. So this is why I feel that really focusing on the letting go is more practical and more what you really need to do. So letting go with your mind, not going over it again and again and again, like a kind of repeating situation, because when you hold on to something, it really drains your energy, and also it will destroy your relationship, because it very often happens, somebody does something really bad to you, and that can be the end of the relationship, but it's not worth it to break a relationship over some relatively minor or even major thing, because the relationship is more important than any of that stuff. So you need to be able to let go, drop your ego, apologize if needed, or let go if somebody comes along and says, oh, I'm very sorry. Immediately say, it's okay, let go, and let's get back to what we had before.
On a working level, on a practical level, if an individual experiences a trauma, either something or someone happened to you, that experience has embedded itself in your memory track. Okay, now this is you, and this is your memory track, and the memory keeps popping up. Explain to us as to how you go about not perpetuating the memory, because one cannot treat one's mind like a computer and highlight and delete, or can you?
In many cases you can, and it's actually a very good thing to do, is whenever something comes up that you have wanted not to get into, instead of fighting with it, just press the delete button and it goes away. And I think that there are many analogies from computing that are really helpful for this, because computers are called artificial intelligence, and sometimes we talk about the screen of the mind. All sorts of words, pictures, whatever come up, and it is so good to have a delete button. You know, how many emails come up that are junk, you just, you know, delete, and to just apply that principle in things that come up in your mind really saves a great deal of time. But on the other hand, you said there's you and there's your memory track, and stuff keeps coming up. Well, if it's a very traumatic thing, my approach is to really go into that thing.
Into it how?
Well, you have to spend time with it. What was it? It very often happens to people that maybe there's a trauma that happened in childhood or something that happened in your adulthood, and it was so shocking that you just couldn't deal with it while the shock was resonating. But then, you know, a time comes when you're ready to deal with it. And I think part of what past traumas will do is they sort of present themselves, and maybe you don't know what to do with it when it does present itself. But my approach is, if it presents itself, I will take it to mean, okay, we're ready to deal with it. So, okay, you're presenting yourself, let's go for a walk together and let us see exactly what this was and really, really go into it. Because I do believe that to go, there's this expression, you know, the only way out is through. So when you really go into it and you go through it again, that actually enables you to have closure with it, and then eventually let it go. Because you see, it's a kind of acceptance, letting go. You say, it is what it is, you know, it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. Whatever it was, I have come to terms with it, and I live with the fact that it occurred, but it's not a handicap, it's not, it's just, you know, it's there. And very often you can actually use that experience to make yourself a little wiser, a little more compassionate, a little more humble. You know, there's many possibilities in that sense. And then you move on. And I think that that is a good way to deal with it.
Okay. Mr. Denise, there are a large percentage of people who insist on holding on to something of the past. What causes us to do that?
Well, revenge, the desire that somebody should, you know, apologize, pay, whatever it is. It's a kind of a compulsion, you know. But ultimately, I don't think that you're serving yourself by doing that, because, you know, life goes on, things happen, and just holding on to it and bearing a grudge. I mean, you can hold on to it for generation after generation after generation, and tell your children and grandchildren, you have to, you know, get even about this thing. There are cultures which bear grudges, but it only ends in, from a karmic point of view, you're keeping the debt going, because any kind of negative action in and of itself, there will be that the machinery of the law of karma will cause it to equalize. You don't have to be the one who makes sure it gets equalized. It will happen. And I think...
Hold on. So please say that again, because I think many people just don't get that. The machinery of the law of karma?
Yeah, if somebody does something bad
to you.
Yes. Okay. So that action created a debt, and that debt has to be paid, but you don't have to be the one to make sure that that debt gets paid. It will get paid anyway. And I think if you know that and you let go of it and you just understand, trust the machinery will happen, you're so much lighter, so much freer, and you can get on with your life, you know.
Holding on to past pain, is it a choice?
I think it's a choice, yeah.
There are many who feel, there are many who believe that the past is holding on to them and not the other way around. What
Well,
would you have to say to that?
There are expressions that people use. They say, I can't let go. And then I will very often say to a person, is it that you can't or that you won't? And I very often recommend, when you say can't, if you could just change it into won't, you realize that you have a lot more choice than you think. If you say I can't, you're powerless. But if you say I won't, it means you have a choice. So exercise your choice. You can if you want.
Mm-hmm. So, Sister Denise, in terms of letting go, it is necessary to let go of and come to terms with any traumatic or negative experience of the past.
Well, I'd say so, yes.
Okay. What else is it necessary to let go of in order to function as a healthy, holistically healthy person?
I think we also have to let go of when something that you say should have been there wasn't there. Maybe your parents weren't totally there for you and they should have been. You have to let go of that. Maybe, some opportunity should have been there for you, but it wasn't, but it was for your brother, your cousin, whatever, and you just won't let go of that sort of thing. But you need to, because there are so many other considerations to bear in mind. But I think that a person's calculation of it is based on probably insufficient information, because people, they say, oh, it's not fair, but they're not looking at the full picture, because the laws of karma really do say, everything is fair. And then there's also another thing, which is the laws of drama, destiny. Everyone is gifted differently. I mean, there are some people who are very gifted, and you may say, well, it's not fair that they're gifted and I'm not. Why did God pass me up, or whatever it is? But you have to accept, you see, and that there isn't fairness in that sense. There's fairness in the sense that everything equalizes in terms of karma, but in terms of destiny, everybody has different destiny. And you cannot say, why is this one having this destiny and me having this other destiny? So some of it will be answered by karma, but some of it is just you have a different role. Some people have hero roles, some people have simple roles. And so it's recommended in Raj Yoga that you practice to be content. And I had one very interesting experience. I was in very deep meditation, and the conclusion of my meditation was so good, because it was that, self, the very best thing of all is that I am me. And then absolutely no interest in not being yourself, and absolute acceptance of all the different details, good, bad and indifferent, that happened. But this realization that the very best thing is that I am me. Nothing is better than that. Then you get on with being you. Pretty good.
Sure, that is quite something. Sister Denise, so you said letting go of past pain and trauma, letting go of what regrets, okay, the shoulds and shouldn't have. The sign of undoing the proverbial ball and chain to your foot. What has been your experience having let go of this burden? What has been your experience?
There's a lovely analogy, which is also my experience. It's like a little story that the bird is really holding on tight to the branch and really flapping its wings, saying, I'm not able to take off. And then the expression is, well, you've got to let go, otherwise you can't, you know. So what happens when you let go is that you can take off, you can fly, you can be free. But sometimes also people let go of, won't let go of their sort of comfort zone. They won't jump out of their nest. I don't know if you saw this extraordinary a film of a little goose, little gosling, on this extremely high cliff, and the parents were down, you know, several hundred feet at the bottom of the cliff, calling out to the bird, and the bird had no feathers, you know, and it was kind of the last one of the little ones, and it's parents saying, yes, come, come, and the bird takes off with his little, you know, fluff, and it's in free fall, and it bounces on these crags. And the observers are horrified that this is like a suicidal drop. And then the parents arrive where this bird lands, this little baby bird, and it kind of, you know,
it survived the fall.
It survived the fall, and they're saying, great, you know, you did it, this is your first flight. And it's such a very good analogy of sometimes what we have to do to just let go and take off and, you know, throw ourselves out into the unknown in order to grow, really. Because sometimes if you don't do that, you just never grow. And if you don't take those risks, you can't really live.
Sister Denise, we all have healthy memories. Okay, is that still okay to have, or is it a question of spirituality teachers want to completely let go of the past? How do you know what is a balanced way of functioning?
Well, it is also said, never forget the days of your childhood. So what you have to let go of is limitations, traumas, all this, but things that are the beautiful parts of your life, allow them to be with you, you know, because they are very healthy memories and they form part of, you know, what you are and who you are in a very positive way. So yes, let them be with you.
Okay. Now, Sister Denise, there's this age-old expression that says, out of every trauma, there was a lesson in it for you, and, you know, every cloud has its silver lining. Is it incumbent upon every person who experienced a trauma to sit with oneself and ask, what was the lesson in that episode for me?
I certainly feel so. And to really look for the silver lining, look for the lesson, look for the reason, because I never think of some tragedy as being for the purpose of making me feel bad or fail or something like this. Everything is for a positive reason, but you only have to really look and find it and take advantage. Sometimes we call this the power of transformation, that you take something that appears to be really very bad, very negative, and, you know, as they say, if they give you lemons, make lemonade. That's the simple way of describing it, but it is really like that, and we can do that, and we should.
I have heard that when one experiences an intense trauma, it not just leaves its mark on the soul, but it becomes part of one's identity. How do you reformulate your sense of self after having experienced something negative, so that you no longer think of yourself in those terms? And Sister Denise, this happens not just at a thought and feeling level. It becomes so deeply embedded. It's almost what they call cellular memory. Take us through your journey of re-establishing your sense of self after a trauma, as far as your identity is concerned.
You know, I feel that you have to embrace it. You have to move through it, find the lesson, find the benefit, but you also have to know it for what it is and embrace it, and it's part of you. We say so-and-so events are good, so-and-so events are bad, but I think spirituality says, you know, embrace it all, so all of it is good, and embrace it, it's part of you. You may be a spiritual warrior. Having scars is a sign of being a warrior, but it doesn't make you a lesser warrior, you know, in that sense. So things, bad things that have happened to you, they, you know, they add to your breadth and depth, and life is not, you know, just a bowl of cherries. It's the good, the bad, the horrific, the extraordinary, the wonder, the boring. There are all these things, and we need to embrace all of them, and the totality of what I have done with the cards that were dealt to me, that is me, and that is good.
Okay. Now, Sister Denise, one of the things that happens to an individual who has experienced any form of pain or trauma is that not only does the experience reproduce itself on the screen of your mind, but there are secondary things that pops up, like fear that such an occurrence can reoccur. So there's all of these branches that pop up. How does one deal with the secondary effects of negativity?
Well, I think that those secondary effects that you were talking about are when a person hasn't worked through it. But when you have worked through it, and you've got through to the other side of it, then what it gives you is not fear and so on, but you've been through it, you know how to deal with it. You're not afraid. Someone else might be afraid, but you're not afraid.
Okay, so it's a question of working through not just the primary trauma and pain, but the secondary effects as well.
All of it, whatever comes up, you know. When you're working through something, you work through many facets, many dimensions. It takes probably a long time to work through it totally, so that you have embraced it, you've understood it, you've made it part of yourself, and it is not toxic, you know. It is what it is.
How do you bring God into this picture of letting go, moving on?
Well, I think that God is your teacher, and one of the messages, one of the teachings of God is, I think there's an expression, very famous one, let go and let God. Have you come across that?
Yeah.
You know, so I think that God says, don't hold on to it. It happens, it's past. Anything that doesn't exist in the present doesn't exist. It's a memory, you know. And so let the past be the past. This is definitely one of God's teachings. Just, it's all right. It's not happening now. Or even if it is happening now, it's happening, but it's not happening to me. Become a detached observer. So letting go, letting it be. You know, there's that wonderful Beatles song, Let It Be. Very, very good song. Listen to the words.
Okay. So we will leave this episode be at this point, because we have to say goodbye to you, but thank you for your depth and your wisdom. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, letting go. Sister Denise has shared that as far as our past is concerned, our regrets, the trauma, the pain, or any negative experience that you have had, it's not a question of it attaching itself to you, but we tend to hold on to our past. And so to let it go, to grow, to learn something from it, and to move on is a choice. It's not an easy choice, but it's a necessary choice for your own mental and spiritual well-being. As Sister Denise had not stated that any of this was easy, she just stated that it's necessary. And once you put in the work in order to become whole again, you will receive help from the divine, because you are showing an act of strength. So thank you so much for joining us today, and I do wish you well in your own spiritual journey. Thank you and goodbye.